Hey everyone, I'm Zaim, and in this video I want to talk about the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. The first thing I want to talk about is the build quality. I mean, the phone costs $1,300. I think this is one of the best designed phones by Samsung. One of the things with the Galaxy Note line is that the phones are massive. The size is way too big, and some people like that, and I mean, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people buy the Note. But if you're looking to use this phone using one hand, unless you got gigantic sized hands, like maybe MKBHD, it's not gonna work. The back of the phone feels a bit matte. It's not as slippery as some of the older phones that Samsung has made. The back finish almost reminds me of the Pixel 4 line of devices, where the feeling was a bit matte-like. Every time a Samsung phone comes out, there's always comments about how good the screen quality is. I mean, they're not wrong. Samsung produces one of the best panels in the market. With the S20 and the Note 20 line of devices this year, Samsung has added the ability to turn on 120 Hz. That means every second the screen is refreshing 120 times. It is adaptive, so it's not always refreshing at 120 Hz. So for example, if you're just reading text and you're not scrolling a lot, in that case, it's not going to be refreshing a lot. However, if you are scrolling or playing a video game, then the phone is smart enough to understand that, hey, there's a lot of movement happening, so it does refresh a bit faster. Now, the drawback of this is you have to compromise on resolution. In Samsung's case, they make you downgrade your resolution of the screen to 1080p and not the native resolution that the phone comes with. The issue with that is if you're used to looking at very high resolution screens, I think you can tell a little bit of difference that you are running a lower resolution screen. In my experience, when I looked at it for the first time, I could tell that it wasn't as sharp as the screen on my iPhone, for example, or my Pixel 4 XL. Now, having said all that, I still want to say that this is hands down one of the best looking screens. If I were given a choice between choosing 60 Hz full resolution versus 120 Hz and 1080p, I think almost all the time I would pick the higher refresh rate, mainly because the phone feels a lot faster. I've been using Samsung phones since the first Samsung Galaxy phone that came out 10 years ago. And I feel like Samsung, in the first few years of the Galaxy line of devices, it had one of the best cameras. But over the past few years, I feel like because of Google Pixel and iPhones, Samsung has always fallen into the third place, the iPhone being the first. But over the past years, Samsung has done a fantastic job in terms of improving their cameras on their phones. Last year, they introduced night mode on their phones, and that made a huge difference when it came to taking photos during nighttime. And this year, Samsung has done it again with a much better sensor than the competition. In terms of processing, Samsung still isn't as good as, I'd say, the Pixel 4 or the iPhone 11, but it comes very close. But when you combine that with a way better sensor, I'd argue that Samsung currently has the best cameras in the market. The main camera offers a very high resolution at 108 megapixels. That is a lot. And what Samsung has done is Samsung does this thing called pixel binning, where it combines the pixels to reduce the size of the image, and that leads to better low light performance and smaller file sizes. As a result, you have one of the best cameras this year when it comes to taking photos and video. The dynamic range is really good. It's really capable in low light. In my experience, when I was testing the camera when compared to the Pixel 4 XL and the iPhone, I felt that Samsung did a slightly better job when it came to low lighting, but it was held back by the processing of the phone, where it always tried to overexpose a photo even in low light, and it was almost never like how I was seeing things in that moment. If Samsung fixes their software a little bit, it could definitely be one of the best cameras. One of the things that Samsung provides in their camera lineup is the wide-angle lens, and it is hands down one of the best wide-angle cameras that you can find in a smartphone. The photos that you get are super sharp, the dynamic range is really good, and it also has a night mode. What that means is that you can take ultra-wide photos in low light and still get the same processing. And that is a feature that you cannot get on the iPhone 11, for example. And the last thing I want to talk about is the 50x zoom lens. The lens is great. It takes really good photos, but I don't recommend using it as a 50x camera. The photos that you're gonna get are going to be so bad that you just don't want to use them. I feel like the only use case that I could find for the 50x was trying to read signs and text. Now, if you are considering the phone for its zoom capabilities, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that in low light, the camera will be absolute trash. After 5x, any zoom that you're gonna get is digital. So basically, the software is zooming in and trying to make the picture quality a bit better. So you're not exactly getting a 50x camera. The selfie camera, it gets the job done. It's pretty wide. It's really good. When it comes to taking videos, this is the best you're gonna get in the Android world. I'd argue that Samsung actually has an edge over iPhones. And the reason is all the manual controls that you get. For example, if you switch your phone over to Pro Video, you can customize basically anything possible when it comes to the camera. So for example, one of the reasons why phone video is always very jittery and it looks like a phone video is the shutter speed. Because there is no variable aperture on phone cameras, what the phone does is, in order to reduce the amount of light going into the sensor to make sure that things are not overexposed, it jacks up the shutter speed. And what that leads to is a very jittery motion. Now, one of the cool things that you can do with this one is you can control things like shutter speed or ISO, and you can have a more cinematic feel that can come out of your phone's video. Let's talk about one of the most important features of any phone, which is battery life. In my experience, I was able to get a full day out of it, but by the end of the day, I was sitting at about 20%. Now, that is actually not too bad considering that you're powering a 120 Hz screen and there's a lot going on in the background. The overnight drain is not great, but that is the case for any Android phone. In my experience, the phone drains at about 1 to 2% overnight, and that is per hour. So if you're leaving your phone at 50%, for example, with 8 hours of sleep, you'll likely get about 35 to 40%. Now let's talk about one of the things that makes a Note phone, and that is the S Pen. In this generation, Samsung has made some pretty big improvements to the S Pen. The latency has gone down to now under 10 seconds. What that means is it's on par with the Apple Pencil on iPads, and when writing on the screen, you can barely tell that this is actually a stylus that you're using. It's almost as fast as writing in real life, which is really good. So if you're somebody who takes a lot of notes, you're gonna be pretty happy with how the S Pen operates. I personally have really bad handwriting, so I'm not taking as many notes on my phone with the S Pen, but I really use it as a stylus. And the other reason why I really love the S Pen is the remote shutter. So for example, if you're taking photos on a tripod in low light and you don't want to press a button to cause any shaking, you can use the S Pen as a remote shutter. Samsung has come a long way since the TouchWiz days. I think One UI is one of the best skins that you can find on any Android phone, but it still has a long way to go to be really perfect. For example, the gestures I noticed are not as smooth as they are on a Pixel phone, and the software can be a bit buggy sometimes. I've had to reboot my phone a few times, and I'm not using any custom launchers. But on the bright side, Samsung is packed with so many features. I'm not sure how many of you guys are using Good Lock, but it is hands down one of the best features of One UI. You can not only modify your lock screen, but you can also modify a bunch of things like the app switcher, your gestures, your nav bar, and you can custom design all of these things exactly to your liking. It is not for everyone because you do need to spend quite a bit of time tweaking everything to your liking, but if you're that kind of person, I think you're gonna be pretty happy. So the question that everybody has is it worth spending $1,300 on a phone that in some ways is not a big upgrade over old devices? And I wanna help answer that question. I think there are two ways to look at it. One is that if you're a phone guy like I am, and you want the best of the best, and even small upgrades matter a lot to you, I'd say it's absolutely worth it. Go get it, assuming you have the money. But if you're somebody who doesn't care about a lot of the incremental changes, I'd say save your money and find something that provides you the features that you care about. For example, if you don't care about a 120Hz screen and you want to be able to use your phone with one hand, I'd say look into a OnePlus or a Google Pixel 4, because both phones have a pretty good refresh rate and you can get them a lot cheaper. If you care about performance, I mean, unless you're gaming, you can't really tell the difference between, the best of the best or something like a Pixel 4. Both are very smooth and you can't always tell the difference. You don't need 12 gigs of RAM in your phone. I think you can be pretty okay with even 6 or 8. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe, as I plan on making videos on a weekly basis, and let me know in the comments what you would like me to cover.